All right, we're at 6 o'clock. We'll get going here. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm glad you're here to take an interest in our community Q&A. Before we begin, however, I want to direct your attention to the announcements channel. I'm going to post a new one, and then I'll talk a little bit about it. Okay. In the announcements channel, from a development perspective, I would like to introduce some added traceability to our issue resolution capabilities. Many times issues are presented in the Discord, but they kind of get lost and then not tracked in GitHub. So to help with that, we've kind of come up with a way to link what happens in Discord back to GitHub. Not necessarily GitHub back to Discord, but in Discord, it's really just tough to find issues when they're identified in real time. So this format will allow us to search and find them and then be able to document them a little bit better and even provide traceability back to GitHub. Um, so then I would also like to mention that ACO will have several announcements at the end of the Q&A and stick around for that. There should be some really exciting details. So then back to our actual topic, which is the Q&A. For each question, either myself or no one, either right away or later on, we'll send whoever asked the question the answer that we're going to provide so that you can update your question in the channel. So all of these answers have been crafted beforehand. We're not going to kind of wing it. First question is from El Wandogo, or known as Drognand, I believe. Might have changed his name in Discord for a little while. Question is when Drognard, there it is. When will you guys be looking to fix both breath damage and spirits within? It seems like there is an issue in GitHub identified for that. We don't really have enough, or it seems like we do have enough data in that GitHub issue, but we still can't provide a timeline. But it does seem problematic enough for us to fix in the near term. So perhaps look for a fix for that in the next 3 months. So Deception asks, I know it's tough to gauge, but if you were making educated guesses, how far are we from assaults and salvage? The first tier assaults are right on the horizon and in testing stage. The project as a whole had to be done from the ground up. Salvage is another story. No one's currently has most of the framework for one zone, so most mobs, and entering and opening the doors. There's really no estimated time for anything besides the first tier assaults, which could be even as early as the next patch. Next question is from Jameus. Our thoughts on content release schedules. For a while, I've helped do captures for a variety of Treasure of Octagon content that we know is in the pipeline. What are your thoughts on the order and spacing of battle content releases? So working on all of the Treasures of Octagon content pieces at time, we plan to have missions to the first battle open with release of the first set of assaults. No real ETA on the rest, as they're all kind of work in progresses. But after those get released, we will certainly have more updates to the missions and as well as assaults. Next question from Iced Latte. Are there plans to balance conquest influence deaths in Beastman controlled zones? This seems like it would be an easy fix, but we will need to determine the real impact of the actions before we can patch it. We've got some ideas on paper, and I guess we'll toss them around in test and see what we can get. If we find a quick one, it might be a near-term thing. Next question from Vexorus. Are considerations being made for Mog Wardrobes 3 and 4? And unfortunately, no, we don't have a plan to add any additional storage options. I would kind of go into the details of that, but we have um, some features in the future that would not really complement doing that. Next question from Cressens. When considering job balance, is the team looking for a one-to-one recreation of the era, or are you open to changes to bring underperforming jobs up to speed? Treasure of Octagon era accuracy is our goal. The recent summoner updates are a step in that direction. Still more pending summoner changes, of course. As for order and or breadth, it kind of depends on the individual developer's plans. And I will kind of give a summary of what the current development has in store for us in this year toward the end. Next question, Taco Tuesday. Anytime on Dreamland Dynamis? Unfortunately, no. Unless God mode, whenever he comes back, maybe he wants to try that out. He's been our Dynamis guy for quite a while. Maybe 2021. Camuel asks, any timeline on blue updates and balancing? So this is kind of a good area. We've reached the point where we've been able to make some changes, like for example, Summoner on jobs. And last time I talked to Setzer, that's kind of where he wanted to go with some of the stuff he was working on. Was working on job issues with various of some of the jobs that we know have pretty big problems. So blue will be on that radar, um, but no concrete plans. Um, do expect each job to get some level of treatment in the near term. Next question, FNG asks, how do you record content from retail client? The information about how to record from the retail client is probably best described by the information from Wigo Captures Discord. He's got a wealth of information and details there. So when we provide our official response to everybody, then that link will be there and you'll be able to peruse through their documentation. Kalik asks, any thought on limiting equipment to only being equipped from the inventory? As is now, it can really warp job balance because in era, while gear swap did still happen, inventory was more of a limiting factor. I really can't go into details about this one. It's just kind of a no plan to limit. Wayne asks, can we get an API for the auction house data? That's a good idea, but we're not going to be investing in any time into an API. It would unfortunately open our services up for even more denial of service attacks. There are some exciting things coming on the horizon for the website. So that's a near-term change that you will all be able to take advantage of.
That's also more of an Atomos thing. Atomos is the one who wrote the framework for the website. So we would also have to coordinate with him if we wanted to do something like that. And he's a pretty busy guy.
Yeah. Yep. Was that far?
Yes.
Thanks. Strider asks, is there going to be a restriction for those people with gifted accounts? Piggybacking off that question, when will the 3 account limit be in effect? We are not sure yet when the 3 account limit will be enforced, as we need to do some work on the back end first. This also means we have not decided on how we want to handle people with extra accounts that were gifted. We do talk about it a lot, though. And it's not really an answer, but we know about it and we're working toward a solution. Virtuous asks, Would you guys ever consider releasing some information on formula as they are implemented for Eden? For example, okay, we'll skip the example part, and we actually have a fairly long official statement for this. Um, we have followed the rule of keeping things a mystery and kind of like a find out for yourself attitude, the same as Square Enix handled things. If you have evidence of something being off, we do have issue reports that can be filed in GitHub to identify those problems. Many players have come to know the era accurate formulas by participating in the various contribution channels in Discord. Our wiki could be updated with formulas expected by the community, but actual implementation will remain a mystery or until Eden becomes open sourced. Poro asks about Claim Shield. Is it functioning as intended? Are statistics kept on claim distribution versus claim attempt? Can it be gamed with certain knowledge of packet techniques? Is that an acceptable long-term outcome? As claims should theoretically be evenly distributed among claim attempts over multiple spawns, would more random methods be considered, such as a claim lottery of all attempts claims within a certain interval? Um, so our official response on this one is going to be that we know Claim Shield is partially working. The part that is not working is our ability to reject packet injection. This is something that I'm going to be making a priority and that I'll be working closely with Setzer on to resolve because he has big plans for packet handling as well. We could pull stats from the logs, but that information really isn't valuable from a development perspective at this time. The only acceptable outcome is that the opportunity to claim is made fair for as many players as possible. We do have ideas on how to combat the issue with unfair claiming, and in actuality, some of those things have been applied. So look for a more viable solution specifically for HNMs in the near term. Nishida asks, would it be possible to disable or remove HNMs that are currently not functioning at the current state that they should be with respect to abilities and statuses until they are ready for release? Yeah, it's definitely possible, but we're not going to do that because we do need the feedback from the community to help us identify those flaws. Typically, we overtune and adjust down, not the other way around. So, time and testing and our collective knowledge will result in a better experience over time. Sig asks a couple of questions. Will out of era abilities be considered for additional job or for addition to jobs? Specifically curious about Bard's Painism. Um, well, there's no plans to support anything out of our era. Some of the changes that we do have that are out of, well, that are unique to Eden are because of some other factors, and our website has information about those. Uh, I believe it's the fact page actually. So check out on those. But if it's outside of Treasures of Ottergon, we're not intending for it to be available. Do you all have any intention to show on Eden XI auction house stack single items separately? This kind of goes along with the website update. They're on the horizon, and it may be one of the things that are included. So look for that in the near term. Any time frame on search comments? Search comments are intended to be implemented within the search server rewrite, which is happening in the near future. We will look into restricting yell to single zone when the replacement is completed and proven effective. Piercing Dark asks, will any of Wings of the Goddess ever be implemented? There are no plans to enable Wings of the Goddess content on Eden server, but perhaps a future project. Such a thing would be kind of far into the future, though. I'm thinking maybe a few years. Kazia asks, any plans estimate time frame to work on Paladin sword weapon skill atonement? This could be included with the release of Nizal Isle content, probably a ways in the future. Nanya asks, is there any update on name and race changes? Name changes are definitely not. They haven't been supported in the past. They won't be supported in the future, unless, of course, the name is offensive or it causes things to break. Like recently, the name status comes to mind because it was one of the qualifiers for using search terms. It would crash the client. Things like that we will probably address in some way with a name change. But as far as supporting name and race changes, we will not in the future. Let's see, Twilight asks, is there a plan to implement the Ottawa Chasm map quest? Yes, it's definitely on the radar, but it really depends on um, who gets a hold of it to implement it. The priority of some things is mixed. Um, since it's just a map, it's kind of low priority, but it's something we definitely want to have available. Next question from Twilight. Will you be willing to consider adding Mog Satchel Sack Case, Wardrobe 3, 4? So kind of goes along the lines of previous question already answered. No, we're not going to increase storage space. Will Ballista ever be, oh, sorry, Tobio asks, will Ballista ever be a thing on the server? Yes, we want to add PvP. When that happens, however, will remain a mystery. It's kind of one of those things we'd like to surprise you with. So think long term. Garphilius, about 1 or 2 weeks ago, I read on FFXI chat Discord channel another player that future development is going to be focused on a Nizal Iron Jar salvage, and that Limbus was not in the path. I want to ask, if this is true, why is Limbus not going to be implemented first over Treasures of Otragon game content? Then, oops, lost my place. Each developer picks something to work on, and we do as a team projects as well. But this project is primarily focused by No One. He has been in the works for a while, and he has a lot of content completed for it. Limbus will be implemented, but it's probably in the more distant future. Um, I would just take a guess that maybe we would start touching on it by the end of the year. Potato asks, ever considered implementing Kindred Seal 99 with pop items for the Three Kings to address the claim bot lag issue? Unfortunately, the competitiveness of HNMs is one of the key era things that we want to keep kind of sacred. We're looking into ways to combat the problems that you described with those scenarios rather than implementing the pop items. Next question from Jubs. Is there a chance you could add Thunderpact to the game? We don't have any plans to add Thunderpact outside of its current BCNM loot table. If you would like to see the item sooner, you're welcome to contribute from the contribution side by using your own power and fingers to do some of that research and some of that finding and some of that writing. Fallen.
So for that one, what do you mean by that? Is we have a contribution guide for making BCNMs, and we've officially kind of passed that off onto the community who want to see new BCNMs because there's kind of a lot of them. It doesn't mean we won't maybe create some ourselves and put them in, but we've officially taken that off of the list as a priority and opened up to the community to be able to actually code these BCNMs and submit them.
Thanks for the clarification, Far.
Yep.
Fallen asks, Invisible and Sneak seem to have an accuracy issue, consistently needing to recast upwards 3 to 8 times for a duration of over a minute. Is this by design, or are there plans in place to address? And unfortunately, by design, and was in fact updated recently to match the consistency with Treasures of Autogon era behavior. Kazuma. First question from Kazuma. Are you planning on reversing the PK patch, uh, i.e., reverse mobs disappearing when you zone them or die to them? This is indeed still the case, and we would like to have pre-MPK patch mobs. The nav mesh issues still being looked into and will be corrected in the future. That's actually another big portion of work that will make a major impact for the game. Fixing nav mesh is a very difficult long-term effort. Next question from Kazuma. What is the timeline of implementing and unimplemented quests such as escort quests, eco warrior, out of the depths quest chain, and missing map quest? Now, at this time, the best answer is that we kind of do them ad hoc. If a developer has a little extra time aside from big projects, then they can lend a hand and like I think there's one for relic relic reset, not relic artifact reset that I'm actually working on in the background, but it's taken a lot of time for me to catch up to speed on that because there's been so many other things happening. But if one of us can finish some of our bigger projects, that'll open up room to implement those missing quests. Rooster, please add Garrison. Yeah, we've definitely wanted to have Garrison for a while, but perhaps next year. Higana, is there any information on when ZNN implemented? When these are implemented, will all tiers be implemented at once or a staggered release? ZNMs are definitely planned to be worked on, but really, like most of the other future things, it's really hard to give an exact time frame. But know that they are on the list. Maybe some of that this year. Boots. When will hatchets and logging be fixed? So I looked in the repo and didn't see too much going on with hatchets and logging as a problem issue. So if you know something that we don't, please do report it in the GitHub. There seems to be one in there with something about break rates. So if that's what you were talking about, then we got it documented. It's just a matter of time before we get around to it. Bell, what plans are there and what can be done to lessen lag issues, both certain zone events like Dynamis, Fafnir, but also in general? So we kind of answered this question previously, but we're going to look at the packets. We're also going to look at ways of reducing the amount of data that is flowing to a specific zone due to congestion. I try to curb some of that. The DSP implementation that we are currently using is sending packets at a higher rate than the client can actually process. So definitely a high priority item on our end, especially since our population is increasing. Spiffly, are there any plans to implement Chocobo racing? And if so, is there Chocobo raising? And if so, is there an ETA? Um, I just looked out there. We had a couple discussions about this in developer chat several times actually, and it's difficult because it's hard to capture. But there are some captures out there, and as I understand, it's the captures that are coming in are going to come in slow. So I don't think you're going to see it in this year or maybe even next year. So then that concludes all the questions that we received in the open period. So just to kind of recap, we're going to be working on claim shielding and fairness in that area. We're also going to be focusing on improving the lag, the amount of data that has to flow between your client and the server. There's lots of bugs in GitHub. So all of our developers are going to pool our resources and kind of chip those off like here and there as in between things, because sometimes we get a little burned out working on one thing and we jump to something else. But we're also going to be working on game master tools to make their jobs a little easier and probably a better experience for players. C features, those are going to be coming along the way throughout the year. Assault, salvage, Nizal Isle, Treasures of Octagon missions. We're also going to be focusing on fixing the jobs that are broken this year. Um, yeah, Setzer specifically told me about combat damage and statuses for players and mobs. So there's probably some big changes coming for how combat pans out for both the players and the mobs. And of course, he's going to be working on toning down the amount of packets that come in. And then Einerjar, ENMs, and ZNMs. So that pretty much concludes the Q&A. So I'm going to pass it over to Aiko. So I hope you found this event useful. Please let me know. I would like to have them on a quarterly like basis, if so. And thank you for joining. So over to Aiko.
Thanks, Saigon.
Yep.
So, my stuff's just gonna be a quick announcement, guys. But first, it's the social media aspect of things. We are going to be opening up a Facebook page for each. In fact, it's already made. Same thing for Twitter. Once this is all over, Sharuto's going to go ahead. He's going to post some links to the Facebook and the Twitter and the announcements, so you guys can check that out. The big news that's going on is recently we actually had a player decide to quit. He gave me his items. You might know him, Rip Hook. He go ahead. He gave me the items on his character, and he said, "I want you guys to do an event with them." So that's what we're gonna do. We haven't figured out the full details on this, but we are going to make sure that we get those details out once we're ready for it. Uh, we're determining what we're going to do on the events and what time we're going to run the events. Just to give you guys a little taste of what kind of items he left behind. I've got things like leaping boots, a hobby +1, and thief's knife sitting there ready for these events. So those will be prizes for that. So please look forward to it.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody, and have a good night.